Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. We have talked extensively about this Oklahoma football team heading into 2025. Now, the reality of our conversations have been very heavily slanted to John Mateer and the impact he's going to have on this Oklahoma football team. And look, rightfully so. I've been very vocal. I think John Mateer is one of the best quarterbacks in the country going into 2025. But as a result of the John Mateer storyline, if you will, I'm sitting here in late May feeling like there are some players on this roster that I think have a big impact on this football team in 2025 that we haven't really talked all that much about. Want to get into some players that I believe are flying under the radar going into 2025. Fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, to the Oklahoma fans, the best part about doing this in May is I'm sure many of y'all are the diehard Oklahoma fans and certainly have some names that you think are flying under the radar. Let it rip in the comment section. Love talking ball with you guys in the comment section, but more importantly, I learn a lot from you guys in the comment section as well. So let it rip. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Let's start with offensive tackle Logan Holland. This is a guy that was it perfect for him as a starter, as a redshirt freshman in 2024? No, absolutely not. Did you see some good things from him as well? Yes. Now you look at Logan Holland and it was a bad situation, right? He was a guy that Oklahoma probably did not want to have to throw out there at left tackle in the 2024 year. They were kind of forced to do so. First real game that he played in was on the road at Ole Miss. Then the next week he has to go on the road to Missouri. A couple weeks later has to go on the road to LSU. Like this was a redshirt freshman that came into this Oklahoma program 24 months ago at 280 pounds and was asked to play in some really tough road environments against some of the better pass rushers that we see in the country. I look at him going into year three and say, one, it wasn't as bad as you probably thought it was going to be in 2024. We've spent so much time talking about guys like Mike Fasusi, which I think excite a lot of Oklahoma fans. Logan Holland very well could be your starting left tackle, and I think there's a chance that Logan Holland can be a quality starting left tackle for Oklahoma in the 2025 year. He was put in such a bad spot. Not only was he a redshirt freshman that was thrusted into starting at left tackle in the SEC probably a little bit more early than he was ready, this was also an Oklahoma offensive line that couldn't run the football worth a damn. And so they were sitting in second and third and long consistently with some of the best pass rushers in the country, just pinning their ears back and getting after in the pass rush. They didn't do a lot to help Logan Holland. I thought he looked okay against some of the better players in the country going into year three. I think we could see a massive step from this kid. I'd, kind of remind Oklahoma fans this kid's only going to be a redshirt sophomore. This is not a 6-year senior that's probably not going to take a step. This is a guy that I would think gets a lot better going into year three, especially as he was a developmental prospect coming out of high school. This was not a guy that we talked about when he committed to Oklahoma as a guy that's going to start for Oklahoma in the first 24 months. He kind of had to. The Oklahoma offensive line intrigues me. In my opinion, it's a lot of capable bodies with what I still think is a very good offensive line coach in Bill B. It's just not a lot of proven guys, especially at the SEC level. You have enough bodies. I think you have the coach to make it happen. If this Oklahoma offensive line clicks in 2025, and I don't need it to be a top 10 unit in the country, I just need it to be average. That's really where this Oklahoma team gets spooky for a lot of teams in 2025. Number 2 on the list, let me go to a wide receiver that is really my personal favorite. That is Ivan Kerion. He started that bowl game against Navy. I thought he was awesome. Like, this is a big body that can work the boundary, that can work the middle of the field. That is an extremely heady wide receiver. He's not a separator. He's not going to route a ton of guys up at 6'6", 225. He knows how to sit it down in zone coverage. He knows how to be that quarterback-friendly pass catcher with a massive catch radius that can find space. and he's a dog blocking at the second level, blocking on the perimeter. This is a guy that you look at what's around Ivan Kerion in this wide receiver room. You look at what Ben Arbuckle wants to do is, hey, we want to get the football to guys like Deion Burks in space and let them do the rest. Well, you probably want some big bodies that are blocking on the perimeter for a guy like Deion Burks. I think Ivan Kerion can do that, but at the same time can be for lack of better terms, a chain mover. A guy that on 3rd and 5, you need a big body that finds some open grass and moves the chains. I think Ivan Kerion can do that as well. Not to mention what the value is that he can have in the red zone. There's a lot of excitement around the transfer portal wide receivers. There's a lot of excitement around a guy like Deion Burks, and I get that. I think Ivan Kerion plays a very big role in this Oklahoma offense in 2025. Number 3 on the list, I'm going to go to a portal wide receiver in Isaiah Satang. Perfect fit for what Ben Arbuckle wants to do. And again, going into spring practice, it was Deion Burks, Giovanni Gibson. Like those were the 2 hot names. Well, Isaiah Satang also had a really good spring. And another guy that to me fits what Ben Arbuckle wants to do on offense. You talk about speed and space, yard after the catch ability. Isaiah Satang is that kind of wide receiver. Now, the interesting part about Isaiah Satang is what's his role going to be? And then what's Deion Burks' role going to be? Those are both wide receivers that like to work out of the slot. How are you going to figure out creative ways to get both of these guys on the football field for you and let them go make plays? Well, that's the best part about having one of the best OCs in the sport. Having a guy like Ben Arbuckle, he's a guy that knows how to get his best football players on the field and putting them in positions to be successful. I don't think that Isaiah Satang is a top 100 draft pick at the wide receiver spot. I think he's a little bit limited in some areas. But if you can figure out a way to use him effectively, specifically getting him the football in space, I think he can be a very productive wide receiver at the collegiate ranks. Number 4 on the list, and probably the most criminally underrated player on this Oklahoma roster, and I would argue probably the most underrated player in the sport, and that's Grayson Halton. Now, why is he kind of flying under the radar? Well, you landed a guy like Dominic Williams last year in the portal. He was a guy that generated a lot of national media buzz. You had a guy like David Stone coming as a 5-star freshman, generated a lot of buzz. Jaden Jackson played phenomenal football as a freshman in 2024. Well, Grayson Halton, to me, was probably the best interior defensive lineman on this football team and is arguably one of the best pure pass rushers from the inside that we see in the sport. There are 2 things that stand out. One, he led this Oklahoma team in quarterback hurries last year. You had a guy like R. Mason Thomas out there on the edge. Grayson Halton, 24 quarterback hurries in the 2024 year. Then secondly, he is a perfect fit for what this Oklahoma defense wants to do. And he perfectly fits the defensive line room in general. You got a guy like Dominic Williams. You got a guy like Jaden Jackson. Those are your 2 gapping forces in the run game. You're great. That's not really Grayson Halton's game. He's not bad in the run game, but he's not necessarily that big body like Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson are. Well, you trot out Jaden Jackson and Dominic Williams on those 1st and 10 run game situations. Now, you stop the run on 1st and 2nd down, you're looking for a guy to trot on the football field fresh to go get after the quarterback. Then you're looking at big dog Grayson Halton, who I think is one of the best in the game, rushing the passer from the inside. Him and David Stone really, I think, can do some damage as pass rushers on the inside of the defensive line. We've said this pretty much all spring long. It finally feels like Brent Venables last year and especially this year has the personnel he needs to do what he wants to do on defense. The first couple of years, it was like, hey, what we kind of expected this elite defense because Brent Venables came in. Well, took over for a coach like Lincoln Riley where defense wasn't necessarily a strong suit. There was not only like a culture shift that needed to be had, but there was a personnel shift that needed to be had too. Like Brent Venables needed to get his guys to run his kind of defense. You saw it in 2024. I think you're going to see it even to a greater extent in 2025. Last one on the list, Kendall Dolby. I feel like we all just forgot about him. He was arguably, outside of probably a guy like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, mean, he was one of the best players on this team early in 2024 before he got banged up. Plays that cheetah role. Oklahoma, in my opinion, has struggled at times to find that perfect cheetah. Kendall Dolby's him. Really good supporting the run, really sticky against these slot wide receivers, a really heady defensive back that can do what you need to do at the cheetah position. That cheetah position ain't easy. I mean, you are asked to do a ton of different things, whether it's drop back in zone, whether it's match up and man, whether it's rush the passer, whether it's support the run. You got to be able to do it all. There are not a lot of players that have the skill set to play that cheetah position. Kendall Dolby, to me, is that perfect guy. And he was playing that position exceptionally well before the injury. Getting Kendall Dolby back, especially with a younger secondary, gonna be really big for Oklahoma. Not only his impact as a pure football player, but the leadership he brings, really important for this Oklahoma defense. Those are my 5 names. Probably could go another 20 minutes with some guys that I think are flying under the radar. But when I look at Oklahoma, yes, it starts with John Mateer. To me, the conversation is I know what John Mateer is because I watched him all of 2024 absolutely sling the pill. My bigger question, I think a lot of Oklahoma fans, bigger questions are, hey, do we have enough around John Mateer to really go out and push for a 8, 9, 10 win season? These are the players that are going to need to step up. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.